I'm on the moon. I'm on the moon. And the excitement, the wonder, the thrill, the adventure of it all. And as Buzz Aldrin described it, it was this magnificent desolation.
In December 1972, Gene Cernan climbed a ladder, sealed a hatch, and left the surface of the moon. He looked back one final time before stepping inside. The gray dust, the black sky, Earth hanging silent above the horizon. And he said humanity would return before too long. That was 52 years ago. We have not gone back, not once. The official story blames budget cuts, a public that moved on, political will gutted by Vietnam and Watergate. These things are true. But there is a man who walked on the moon 8 months before Cernan, a man who spent decades staying silent, who says the real reason has never appeared in a single government press release. His name is Charles Duke. He is 89 years old. He is one of only 4 surviving moonwalkers on Earth. And in the final chapter of his life, with nothing left to protect, he is describing what he found in the lunar highlands in April 1972. What he photographed, what Houston told him to ignore, what has never appeared in any official NASA release. What he says changes the entire story. Before anything else, you need to understand who Charles Duke actually is. July 20th, 1969. Apollo 11 is descending toward the surface of the moon. 600 million people, the largest television audience in human history at that point, are watching. And the voice that answers Neil Armstrong from Mission Control is calm, measured, almost casual. Roger, tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. That voice is Charles Duke, capsule communicator, the one human being selected to speak for all of Earth at the most consequential moment in the history of exploration. They chose him because of what he was. Naval Academy graduate, decorated Air Force fighter pilot, MIT-trained engineer who helped design the very guidance systems navigating Apollo, aerospace research pilot school instructor, over 4,000 hours of flight time in aircraft that punish the slightest lapse in judgment. Test pilots don't speculate. They don't dramatize. They are professionally trained. Their survival depends on it, to report exactly what they see, exactly when they see it, with zero embellishment. This is the man who would go on to walk on the moon himself. And this is the man now describing, in precise and careful language, what Apollo 16 encountered in the Descartes Highlands in the spring of 1972. That context is not a footnote. It is the whole point. April 16th, 1972. Duke, Commander John Young, and Ken Mattingly leave Earth aboard Apollo 16. 4 days later, Duke and Young descend to the Descartes Highlands, the most elevated landing site in the entire Apollo program. 7,400 feet above the plane, where Armstrong first touched the surface. They spent 71 hours on the moon. Drove the rover across 26 kilometers of terrain no human being had ever seen. Brought back 95.8 kilograms of samples. Ran every experiment on the checklist. NASA called it one of the most productive missions ever flown. That is the official record. Here is what never made the debrief. From the very beginning of the surface stay, something was off. The light behaved strangely, blues and purples shifting across the gray regolith with no atmospheric source to explain them. Not reflections from equipment or visors. Just color moving across an airless world where color has no business being. Duke noticed it immediately, didn't report it. Kept working. He heard sounds. Not through the radio, not mechanical vibrations from the suit. Tones, sometimes harmonic, sometimes deeply unsettling, traveling through a vacuum where sound cannot physically travel. He asked Young if he heard them too. Young said yes. Two of the most rigorously trained observers in the history of spaceflight, both hearing the same impossible thing. Time started slipping. Duke would finish a task and check his suit clock, and 20 minutes would be gone when he felt 2 pass. Stretches of 5 minutes on the timer felt like an hour of work. Young experienced the same distortions throughout the entire surface stay. Their internal sense of time never once matched the mission clock, not during any of the 71 hours they were on the surface. Duke said nothing to Houston about any of it, because subjective experience, strange light, strange sound, strange time, a flight surgeon can dismiss with a sentence. Mission stress, sensory adjustment. Close the file. Duke knew this, so he kept moving, kept working, kept his mouth shut. What happened on the third day could not be explained away. 6 kilometers from the lunar module. The ridge behind them has put the Earth below the horizon, the first time in the mission they cannot see home. Duke and Young are running a geological sampling pass, hands moving on autopilot, the kind of repetitive fieldwork you stop thinking about after the first hour. Duke looks up. The shapes on the horizon are wrong. The moon has no straight lines. This is not an aesthetic observation. It is geology. 4.5 billion years of meteorite impacts and thermal fracturing produce one thing: randomness. Nothing on the lunar surface has clean angles, deliberate geometry, or fitted seams. The moon is chaos at every scale. Duke had been trained to read this terrain the way a doctor reads a scan. He knew what the moon was supposed to look like. What he is looking at does not look like that. He calls it out. Young stops the rover. Young sees it too. They drive closer, neither speaking, the dust rising behind the rover's wheels and falling straight back to the ground in the silence of the vacuum. As the distance closes, the shapes resolve completely. A wall. Angular blocks fitted together with a uniformity that no geological process creates. Covered in thick lunar dust, worn and ancient-looking, but unmistakably not natural. Not fractured by impact, not piled by chance. Constructed. Deliberately and intelligently constructed by something with purpose. Duke estimates it at roughly 100 meters in length, disappearing into the regolith at both ends, as though they are looking at the spine of something vastly larger that the moon has been slowly swallowing. The strange light he had been noticing all mission is more concentrated here. The tones are louder, almost directional, as if the structure itself is the source. Duke keys the radio. He uses the flat, precise language of a test pilot reporting an instrument reading. Geometric formation, not natural, appears constructed. Approximately 100 meters in length, requesting guidance. He waits for the 1 Mississippi response, the 1.3-second rhythm he had internalized over years of missions. The delay he could feel instinctively, like a heartbeat. What follows is not 1.3 seconds, 10 seconds, 20. He calls again. 30 full seconds of silence from a room of engineers monitoring every breath of this mission before a voice comes back. Flat. Controlled, not curious, not alarmed. Continue with planned EVA sample collection activities. 8 words. To 2 astronauts reporting a structure on the surface of the moon. No follow-up, no request for detail. A cold instruction to move on, as if whoever was on the other end of that line already knew it was there. Duke and Young photograph everything before moving on. Dozens of frames, close-ups, wide shots, context photographs from every angle they can get. Duke has described those images in later interviews. Crystal clear, properly exposed, technically flawless. Not one of those photographs has ever been released. Duke spent decades asking NASA where they went. The answers kept changing. Classified for technical reasons. Lost in archival transfer. Image quality too degraded. Each answer different, none of them consistent, none of them holding up. Duke was there. He held the camera. He pressed the shutter. He describes his reaction not as confusion but as fury. The cold, sustained anger of a man who knows where something is and cannot prove it. When asked later whether the structure looked recent, Duke shook his head. The blocks were eroded, pitted with micrometeorite impact craters that only accumulate over millions of years of constant bombardment in an airless environment. There is no wind on the moon, no rain, no weather of any kind, but there is a measurable, known rate at which microimpacts scar a surface over time. Duke's estimate, hundreds of millions of years old. The oldest human-built structures on Earth are roughly 12,000 years old. What Duke photographed in the Descartes Highlands, if his account is accurate, predates our species entirely. Whatever built it did so when our ancestors were still hundreds of millions of years from existing. It built on the moon and was gone before the first human being ever looked up at the sky and wondered what was there. Duke says plainly, NASA knows. The photographs, the data, the observations from multiple missions. It has been inside the institution for over 50 years. The decision to keep it there was made not out of malice, in his telling, but out of something smaller. The institutional unwillingness to be the organization that detonates what humanity believes about its own place in the universe. Gene Cernan left the moon in December 1972. The program stopped. Completely, immediately, with no replacement waiting. Programs get paused and restructured and redirected. Apollo didn't. It ended, and humanity stayed away for half a century. Duke's explanation is direct. The people making decisions realized that continuing meant confronting questions they were not equipped to answer. About who was on the moon before us. About what those structures mean. About whether human history, as we have always understood it, is the whole story, or just the most recent chapter in something far older and far stranger. Charles Duke is 89. The other moonwalkers are almost all gone. He kept quiet for 40 years because the truth would have ended everything he built. Now the career is history and the legacy is set, and there is only one thing left worth protecting. So he is asking the one question that has no comfortable answer. If there was nothing to find up there, if the moon was always just dust and silence and dead geology, then where are the photographs? And after 52 years, why hasn't anyone in NASA ever given the same answer twice? Subscribe now, because the closer you look at what Apollo actually found, the harder the official version is to believe.